Satnam Aloha, everybody. And I'm hoping that you can hear me. Looks like you can. And what do we got here? And thank you for your patience. I was a little bit delayed. Awesome. People from all over the United States. Great. Yeah. Yesterday I was at peace within, today struggling within. Tired. Welcome to Cancer season and the emotions. Yeah. Okay. Let's turn this off.
I've spent much of...
There we go. Okay, there we go. Okay. So you may have noticed that we're officially in Cancer season. And Cancer is ruled by the moon, and the moon rules our emotional body. So, right, the moon is waxing and waning. It's always moving. It's always in movement. And that's our emotions. So, a reminder, for the Aquarian age, we're evolving through our emotional body, our astral body. So, may have been very emotional last week. Especially last week, right? That's when the sun moved into Cancer. And really the 20th, really look at the date, the 20th. The 20th is really important. So the day before the solstice, whatever was coming up for you, right? This is going to be really, really important for this next couple months as we go into the eclipse season, okay? So, you could have been sad or anxious, like mental anxiety. Maybe you had insomnia. Maybe a lot of fears coming up. Maybe you're angry. Maybe you're frustrated. And what I say is I applaud. This is very good. It's very, very good. It's a danger when we repress our emotions at this time. That's a very, very dangerous place to be in because they're explosive. Right? They're going to come up one way or another, and we don't want them to come through the physical, and that's through disease, right? The medicine is going to look back at this time and oh my God, I can't believe that the humans didn't get it, that we could completely rid ourselves of disease if we went into the root of disease, which is the stuck emotions, right? Okay, so if you're crying, waking up crying, I'm trying to think of I had a really emotional day. I'm quite an emotional person anyway, because this is part of my destiny, right, is to work with the emotional body. It's very, very emotional on that Thursday that I talked about on the 20th. And it was just spontaneous. It was just a spontaneous thing. And my mind is why am I sad? Why am I upset? You just let the mind do its thing, but you just allow those emotions to arise, right? That's your work. It's just to give them a space and allow them to move. Okay? So first of all, give yourself permission, right? That's all we have to do is give ourselves permission. It's okay that I'm feeling sad, or it's okay if I'm feeling angry, or if I'm feeling afraid. It's okay, right? It's just giving yourself permission to have that, to sit with those feelings, and they'll move, right? They'll move. So when these emotions come up and surface, and they're going to this summer, it's going to be very an emotional summer, and this means that you're in the process of healing, right? Which healing and wholeness come from the same root word. So you're coming back to your original self, right? So that it's all part of the healing process. So this is going to be for everybody, right? There's going to be an emotional roller coaster for everybody on the planet. So it's going to be very intense. So remember that the emotions, they're like waves. So they just come and go. They come and go. And we suffer why we suffer is because of our attachments, right? We want to feel joy, but we don't want to feel sadness, right? We want to feel compassion, but we don't want to feel angry, right? So this joy and sadness, to use that as an example, this is the endless cycle. Okay, the cycle is up and down, until your emotional body is purified. And that's what we're doing now for the Aquarian age. We're purifying our astral body. And then it starts to raise in frequency, the astral body raise in frequency. And this is when you're in the Buddhic plane, right? And this is like the realm of peace and happiness, perpetual peace and happiness. But you've got to do your shadow work to get there, right? You've got to address your own fears. Only you can do that for yourself. So it reminds me of this story, story from India. And there was the king, and he had a spiritual advisor. And so the spiritual advisor did all the studies of the Vedas and the ancient scriptures and all of that. He was a scholar of that material. And the king said, I don't have time to do the study that you've done, right? You're a scholar of this. But I do need just a sentence. Just give me a sentence that I can use, especially if you're not around, because he was going off to war, right? He was going off to war. And he was really feeling that, this could be his time. His time's up. And he's going to need something to get him through this time, right? Because he couldn't bring his spiritual advisor. So the spiritual advisor wrote the one sentence on the scroll. And he rolls it up and he gives it to the king. And the spiritual advisor said, just put this in a special place. And when you're feeling really in darkness and that there's no hope, I want you to open up this scroll and read it. So he goes off to war, and he and his men, they're completely getting defeated, and he retreated and took cover, and he remembered, my spiritual advisor wrote this thing on the scroll. This is the time I have to read it. So he goes and he finds it and he opens it up, and it says, "This too shall pass. This too shall pass." And then it was like, okay, this is the reminder that this is going to pass, like everything in my life, right? Comes and goes. This too shall pass. This heavy time will pass. So he reads that, brings him optimism. He remembers his true identity, right, as a spiritual being. Goes off, courageously fights. It's a miracle, right? They conquer their enemy. He comes back home, right? Celebration, wine, and lots of food. And the spiritual advisor comes to him, and he said, this is the time to read that scroll again, right? Like, look at that scroll again, what I wrote down. And and the king is like, well, why? I'm not down, I'm not defeated. And he's like, it's the same thing, right? This celebratory time, this high, up. This too shall pass. So this is how to approach your emotional self, is to know when you're feeling, I feel so awesome, because we're going to have those times too. Have you experienced that? It's not all doom and gloom. It's that too, right? The elevation up above the water, feeling great, feeling expanded. You need to remember that this too shall pass. Not from a defeatist, like ego place, like this nothing lasts forever and this is horrible, like not a victim place, but just from a spiritual adult place. Like this, I'm going to enjoy this time that I'm in, but I'm not going to get attached to it, because the ego wants to, I want to feel like this all the time. I want to feel like this all the time. And it's not true. You are the witness of this coming and going, right? But there's a space within you, your true identity, and that's what never comes and goes, right? You're like you're the witness of all this, whatever's going on in your life. You're the witness of your thoughts. You're the witness of your emotions, the up and down. Okay, so your only job is to love yourself and let them move. Let them move through you. Okay. Okay, so this week I looked at the chart for this week, and what really caught my attention was Mars and Mercury are in a conjunction. So that means they're holding hands, right? They're got their arms around one another. So they're working together, and they're in the sign of Cancer, and they're in the shadow of distraction. Distraction. This is the 56th gene key, the shadow of distraction. So remember that every shadow has a gift. And so this planetary energy is really giving us information about what's going on in the collective unconscious of humanity. That's astrology, right? As above, so below. It's just giving us a map. It's like reflecting what's going on in the collective of unconscious, the collective unconscious of humanity. Okay. So first off, this can make communication with people quite volatile, right? Because Mars is the warrior. Mars is angry, impulsive. It can be even prone to violence, right? Mars is all about instinct, right? Take action, ask questions later. It's the immature masculine, right? Mars. And Mercury is our communication. So this is our thinking, right? The way that we think, our thoughts that are going to come up. So there could be some heated discussions with people. There can be arguments, that kind of thing this week. I'm right and you're wrong, and I'm going to tell you why you're wrong, like that kind of thing. You may have been already starting to feel this in yourself, like just getting snippy with people, getting frustrated with people, giving them a piece of your mind. Okay? So these two are also in the shadow of distraction, right? So this shadow, in terms of Mars and Mercury, it's about falling victim to someone else's thinking. So it's buying into somebody else's belief system. And so many people wrongly, I want to say wrongly, believe that they're original thinkers, right? Of course I think for myself. Yet, if you really listen to people, they're only parroting something that they've heard on the news, right? The talking points from the news. So an example of this is how this shadow works, is how the media manipulates us. Because people read the headlines, right? They don't have time. It's the information age. There's just too much information. So people get lazy. They just see the headlines, right? They just see the headlines, right? So they're scrolling through their phone. They see the headline. And the headline is usually misleading because if you actually go to the article, it's like, well, that headline had nothing to do with this article. It jumped to a conclusion, right? The story does not fit with the headline. So this is the laziness that humans have fallen into, and that's the shadow at work. So this is how the media manipulates us into thinking the same way, right? Thinking and behaving the same way. So remember that the patriarchy, the Aquarian age, the patriarchy, this old consciousness, is losing its foothold. It's losing its control. It's losing its power. So we're going to see more of this trickery kind of coming up, And so more of the shadow of distraction, distracting us, right, from what's real and true, and distracting us from things that are of value, things that we need to be looking at, right, as a humanity, and things that you need to be looking at yourself individually. So really watch this, like, do I really believe that? Or was I taught that in school, or my parents or my grandparents thought that way? Like, really start to, question, where are these thoughts coming from? Where is this belief coming from? And is this really true? Like, ask yourself, is this really true? More from a curious place, right? Not from a judgmental place. So this shadow is distracting us from our pain. That's really what the shadow is doing, the shadow of distraction. It's distracting us from our pain, and this is our suffering that's surfacing, this pain. And this is the pain from your past. It's the pain from your childhood. It's ancestral pain, and it's uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable. There's emotional knots within us. But they want to come up to be healed, right? To come into the light and to transmute. So as soon as it starts to arise, which it does, right? It's like in the ocean when you try to keep the beach ball underneath the water, you can only do it for so long, right? It just pops up. That's our suffering. It pops up. So what this shadow has you do is looking for a distraction, right? Looking through the five senses. It has to do with the five senses. Because when we're in our senses, our five senses, we're numb. We become numb to this pain. We don't feel it anymore. So this shadow is about being stimulated constantly, right? And especially with the eyes, because it rules the eyes. So needing to be reading something, needing to watch movies, something visual to be constantly stimulated. And it's going to be really up, right? Mercury and Mars up there. Your thinking, the way your mind works, will be in the shadow. And then Mars is like, take action, distract yourself. You're going to have the will, that willpower. So I'll get to the medicine in a little bit. So you can also be distracted just by your mind, living in the fantasies of your mind. So not just distracted from the external, right? But also your mind. What's going on in your mind, whatever fantasies you're in. Fantasies about the past, the shoulda, coulda, woulda. Or fantasies about the future, what could be, right? What I want, my desires, whatever. So you can be a person just completely locked in your internal self. Not your true identity, but in the mind, right? And this is, the constant commentary, too, of your mind that never stops. And meanwhile, you're completely ignoring the outside world, which I understand, right? There's a huge temptation to do that, just to withdraw and stay inside, especially Cancer, right? Cancer people, they want to be in their shell, right? They want to be hidden away because they feel vulnerable. So that, back to the five senses, the ancients called the five senses the five thieves. You may have heard this. The five senses are the five thieves that steal your awareness, your energy. So Yogi Bhajan, I love this. Yogi Bhajan, the master of Kundalini Yoga, said we have to become holy, right? We have to become holy. And holy means watching what comes in and out of your 9 holes. That's what he called holy. Watch what's coming in and out of your 9 holes. So this is taking responsibility for your consciousness, for your energy. You're in charge of your own consciousness and your energy. And these distractions drain your energy, right? Drain your radiance. And as soon as the energy goes down, your consciousness goes down, and then you're in this victim state, So have you ever had this experience of distraction? Maybe you've binged on a Netflix series, and afterwards you just don't feel good, right? Like you've ate too much food, you've got indigestion, doesn't feel good. That's like an example of that. You'll know, right? It's what's correct for you or not. So we need to stop and pause and then discern what truly nourishes my soul and what is draining my energy. Because, for example, so maybe 1 or 2 episodes of a Netflix series, that does enrich my soul, right? It's all about balance. And only you are going to know what's correct for you. So that means you need to be in your body, you need to be aware, right? So I'm not advocating dogma, do's and don'ts, right? Because then you're giving your authority over to me. I'm saying bring your authority back to yourself, right? This is about what it means to be a spiritual adult. Oh, I did that and that didn't feel good, so I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to be really conscious and aware. And then asking yourself, right? What am I distracting myself right now? Am I go deeper? Okay, I'm not feeling good right now. I feel like this pain inside me, or something happened, with a good friend a couple hours ago and I haven't really processed through it, right? Oh, and I think I'm avoiding that because it's coming in my mind, and I'm going for Netflix, or I'm going for food, or I'm going for wine or drugs or something, right? Right? So it's just being aware, like self-aware. So how it can play out for you, like the big hint, like where distraction is for you, is to ask yourself, what can't you say no to when it's offered to you or it's in your house? What can I say no to? It's like virtually impossible for me to say no. I don't think I've ever said no to this, right? That's whatever you can't say no to, that's where you're actually a victim to whatever that thing is. And that's where your spiritual work is, right? So look at that place of that thing or that person or that scenario, that environment, whatever it is. What can I say no to? So the gift is enrichment, right? Distraction to enrichment. And it's enrichment intoxication. And this gives you self-discipline. And we really need this, especially now. You know, we have all the knowledge, all the kriyas, all the meditations, all the spiritual. It's all out there. There's a couple clicks on the internet, you can find it. We have access to it all. And we didn't have that 50 years ago. And we certainly didn't have that 100 years ago. Right? People had to go off to India. They had to be renunciates. Right? Completely leave their family and go off and cloistered study somewhere. Right? So you don't need that now. With our whole focus in the Piscean age was to go out and find this information. I need to go out and find it. Now we need self-discipline. That's what we need, is self-discipline. It's all there, but now we need self-discipline. Okay, well, all the kriyas and meditations are there, but I got to do it. Right? I got to wake up in the morning and do it and practice. So we need to cultivate this self-discipline, and sadhana gives you that. Like, I can't stress that enough, in the importance of sadhana, especially in this time that we're in right now, just to get into that habit, right? It could be as little as 3 minutes, right? It doesn't have to be 2.5 hours. It doesn't have to be extreme. It's just you consistently do something every single day, and this will give you the self-discipline, and that in turn gives you the self-trust, like trust in yourself, right? So the biggest distraction, I want to talk, like, let's go right to the big kahuna. Like, the biggest distraction we have to confront is the distraction from our true identity and why we're here. Right? And what's the biggest distraction on the spiritual journey is Maya, right? The material world. So Maya means that which is not true. And I like to look at it as an analogy, right? So say a princess, this royal princess, she needs to get back to her country that's far away. So she's in a big city, say she's in New York City. And the only way that she can get home is to get on a helicopter, right? And the helicopter's on top of this huge high-rise building, this shopping complex. And then she's going to be flown off to the airport, and then she goes home, right? So she walks into this building. She's all alone. And she gets to the elevator, and say the rooftop's on the 45th floor. So she presses 45. So she gets on the elevator. And then a man gets on, on the 3rd floor, gets in the elevator with her. And maybe he's charismatic. Maybe he's good looking, right? He charms her. And he gets off at the 13th floor and turns back to her and says, "Come with me. I want to show you something that you'll really like." So she looks over him, and she sees all these shiny, interesting, sparkly things that grab her attention. She sees all these people happy and laughing, and she thinks, well, what's the harm? I'll go. I have a bit of time, right? I'll have a look, and then I'll get back on the elevator. So she gets off on this 13th floor, and she spends hours and hours and maybe days and days and months, and they turn into years with all these many distractions for the senses. The good food, the wine, the movies, all the technological gadgets she's never seen before, the clothes, the jewelry, the witty conversation, all of that. until she forgets who she is, right? And maybe she's tricked into working there to pay for all the things that she thinks she owns, right? She thinks she's a poor shop girl now, and she forgets her royal blood. She forgets her royalty. She forgets her wealth that's waiting for her back home. She forgets all about it. She forgets her goal. She's lost in this distraction of Maya. So this is like us, right? We've forgotten who we are. We are eternal, living. We're like eternal beings living in a time-based body. That's who we are. And we've forgotten our goal, which is to return home, right, to the infinite. So this doesn't mean that we're all going to get on a rocket ship, right, and head to the Pleiades. Our home is right here in this present moment. And this is really shifting our perspective from the horizontal viewpoint perspective is past, future, time, linear, have to get somewhere, have to get something on the external. That's horizontal thinking, right? So for the Aquarian age, we're shifting from horizontal thinking into vertical thinking. Our perception has to turn from horizontal to vertical. And vertical is we're already that which we want to become. We're already that. We're already here. It's in this present moment. I'm already home. I'm already that. I am. My eternal nature is found in the vertical. It's not found in the horizontal. So this is the shadow and the ego get you tricked, right? Oh, fulfillment's out there. Happiness is out there. That's the distraction. Fulfillment, what I'm looking for is all out there. No, it's all in here, right? So this week you really want to look at what distracts you and what's your favorite distraction. Maybe write that one thing you can't say no to, right? That's the thing you want to look at and maybe eliminate it for a day and say, I'm not going to do this today and I'm going to see what happens, right? I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to become really self-aware and self-disciplined, and I'm not going to act on this distraction that usually gets me every day, right? Like the phone, maybe phone first thing in the morning you're looking at, right? Checking your email, right? So the night before, put the phone away. It's like, I'm not going to the phone first. I'm going to go to meditate first, see what happens, right? Be curious what happens to your consciousness. So the power animal is the mongoose, right there. I wish I could, anyway, I don't want to put my problem on you. I'll figure it out. So that's the mongoose right there. And this is, he's connected to he or she is connected to the 56 gene key of distraction, gift of enrichment, and intoxication. So the mongoose represents defense, protection, and destroying evil. So I don't like the word evil. Evil is just our fear manifested out on the external. That's all evil is fear, right? It's the opposite of life is fear. So it can destroy fear. It can help destroy shadow, mongoose. So if you work in the shamanic realm, I'm not sure if any of you guys do that, you can bring that just with your intention. It's like, oh, I want to bring that energy of mongoose to me. You got to remember, right? It's like 8.4 million lifetimes we've lived until we get to the point of that lifetime where we're going to awaken out of the dream, and, right? And realize that we're an eternal self. We've spent lifetimes in all the plant realm and the animal realm. So mongoose is already in us. We just have to draw upon that energy. And mongoose is defense, protection, and destroying fear. So if you have some fierce enemy that's coming up, which is really just you, right? Your shadow, some shadow is being manifested on the external for you to, right? You can bring in this power of the mongoose. I'm going to bring in mongoose. Or just ask yourself a little prayer. I'm going to bring in the essence of mongoose now to help me through this challenge. Or you need to be patient in some situation, because the mongoose will help you give that too. So the mongoose is really interesting. It was a sacred and revered animal in ancient Egypt. So it goes way, way back to Egypt. So they found mummified mongooses. Right? So they got the mummy in the tomb and they got the little mongoose. And they're tiny, eh? They're like only 2 feet. Some of them are 2 feet. And there's also images of the mongooses on the funeral urns too in ancient Egypt. So they were very important to the Egyptians. And what's really interesting to me that really sparked my interest is this is one of the few animals. Remember, it's a little tiny guy, right? One of the few animals that can fight and win against a rattlesnake. Right, not affected by the venom of the rattlesnake, right? So a fierce warrior, this little mongoose, right? And very loyal. They have sentinels, one will stand guard while the others eat and things like that. So they work well in community. But back to this venom, so not affected by the venom, right? Is the venom represents the toxins. So toxin, notice that the word toxin is in intoxication, right? So the toxin is in the word intoxication. So the toxin is your suffering. The toxin is your shadow. And this can be transmuted into intoxication. So that's where the connection to the mongoose really fits in for this shadow pattern. That you can transmute this, okay? Yeah. Okay. So we can't fear our shadow, our fears. And the Aquarian age is coming. Whether you believe in it or not, it's coming. And the new earth is coming. And we have to prepare. And this means we have to do our shadow work. And this is by healing our wounded child, by purifying our emotional body, by facing our fears, by stop blaming other people in the external world. Right? We need to stop doing that. Most of the world does this, and this is victim consciousness. Okay? Wherever there's a victim, there has to be an abuser. Wherever there's an abuser, there has to be a victim. It's the same consciousness. So we have to get really firm and disciplined into this is the mind's play. We've been in this thousands of years, this game, right? And all we're doing is fighting the mirror. We're punching the mirror. What happens when you punch a mirror? Who gets hurt? The mirror doesn't get hurt. You get hurt. So it's about this self-discipline and restraint. Right? Restraint's going to be a very important, that's for next week. Okay? So restraining and keeping it in. It's okay, this is me. I have to transmute this shadow. And when we start doing this, we're going to stop seeing it out in the world. Okay? So this is the most important work that you can do right now. Right? As we prepare for this new earth that is coming. It is coming. No, there's a knowingness. If you're listening, if you really tune into yourself, you know this is truth. So I'm going to go more into depth about all of this stuff and more in my Eclipse series, and that starts July 2nd, right? So you need to sign up for that if you feel really called, okay? So it's going to be a lot more than, this is what the astrology is. It's going to be very, very deep, right? Because I'm going to go deeper into the this time that we're in right now is pivotal, especially this year for us as we move closer and closer into this Aquarian age. And these eclipses are really opportunities. They're wormholes to bring you into vertical thinking. And so there's going to be fated events. It's already happening, these fated events that you seem like you have no control over. They're just happening. These are fated, right? Fated karmic events, and they're breaking us down. The purpose is to break us down, and they're dismantling the ego to bring you where you're supposed to be, right? So instead of resisting right? Using that energy to resist and go into victim consciousness, which most people do. Why not see exactly where you need to focus your attention and save yourself energy, right? Use that energy of resistance towards your growth and evolution. So this is the plus side of the Mars-Mercury opposing Pluto-Saturn, right, that we're in right now, this aspect, powerful aspect, is it gives us that, if we really get out of victim consciousness, we can really use that energy to focus, like really hone in to see what our work is to do, right, to do during this time. Okay. I just want to look at some comments. And let's just breathe with me for a moment, okay? So just close your eyes wherever you are. And if you can't close your eyes, that means you're afraid of facing your fears. Okay. So just take a deep breath with me. Inhale deeply. Suspend the breath. And bringing the breath all the way to the belly. And exhale through the nostrils. Again, inhale deeply. And expand the belly. Suspend the breath. And exhale. And one last time, inhale deeply. Suspend the breath and bring your awareness to your belly. Hold the breath. Relax the shoulders and exhale through the nostrils. And feel your feet on the ground. And feel centered. Feel like all your energy is in this present moment. And make that commitment to yourself for this week to really honor whatever emotions are coming up for you, and to commit to yourself that you'll stay in truth and not project your fear onto others, onto the world. And commit to yourself that you want to know. I want to know who I am in this lifetime. I want to know my true identity. I want to know my greatness. I want to know my divine gifts. I want to know my higher purpose. I want to know what's behind these emotions. What's on the other side? Right? Where's that wormhole taking me? And inhale. And exhale. Okay. Let's see here. I'm just looking at some comments. It's nice to see everybody. Oh, David Conrad needs some attention. Bless you, David Conrad. Okay. Okay. There we go. So any questions or comments or right. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for joining in for this week. And I really hope and pray that you join me for the Eclipse series. It's all going to be recorded too, so you'll have a recording of it, and you'll have homework to do, and I'm going to give you lots of tools. Right? Part of my purpose is to help people transition through great change with ease. That's part of my purpose. It's right in my chart. Okay? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Satnam, everybody. I'm disappearing to the mongoose. Satnam.